so much. It's that each of you have made, and the fact that you're still interested in a country that is for, of, and by the people and not for, of, and by the government. And this is a major time in our country's history. This is still the land of dreams. You know, in recent months, I have been to several different countries, and I'm always interested to get back here to America because people have come here for decades, for centuries, to realize their dreams. My dream was to become a doctor as a youngster growing up in Detroit and Boston. It seemed like a lofty goal, but something that I felt was obtainable. And when I finally did achieve that dream as an intern and a junior resident at Johns Hopkins, one of the things that really struck me as I went onto those wards and I would see all these people, the CEO of this company, the president of this organization, the crown prince of this country, the queen of this nation, frequently dying of some horrible disease. And every single one of them would have gladly given every penny and every title for a clean bill of health. And you begin to realize how critically important your health is. It is the most valuable thing that falls into insignificance compared to your health. And that's the reason that your health should be controlled by you and not by the government. But when we're talking about things that are important, life is important. And that includes the life of the unborn also. You know, there are those of us in this society who've told women that there's a war on them because that cute little baby inside of them, they may want to get rid of it. And there are people who are keeping you from doing that. And women say, no, they're not doing that to me. No. And they get all riled up and think that somebody's depriving them. Let me tell you something. There's no war on women. You think about it. When a woman is pregnant, what happens? People get up and give her their seat. They get out of the way. They say, you go first. You know, there is great respect and love for pregnant women. There is no war on them. The war is on their babies. That's where the war is. Babies that over the past few decades, we have destroyed 55 million of them. And we have the nerve to call other societies of the past heathen. Think about that. And what we need to do is re-educate the women to understand that they are the defenders of these babies, not the destroyers of these babies. We need to understand. Well, you know, there were a lot of bumps in the road for me realizing my dream of becoming a physician, not the least of which was the fact that my parents got divorced. And that was devastating for an 8-year-old boy. And let me just say to anyone who's out there who's got children and they're thinking about getting a divorce, please reconsider. Start thinking about those things that you loved about your mate. Don't concentrate on the negative stuff. You know, of course, you take two people from different environments and you put them together, there's going to be some friction. It's like rubbing two pieces of sandpaper together. But you know what? If you keep rubbing them, it gets smooth. You got to stay in there, you know? It's, you know, to have and to hold till death do us part, not like the Hollywood model, to having to hold until you get irritated with each other. You know, that just doesn't work. And we need to recognize that God created the family structure for a reason. And marriage is a sacred institution by God himself. And there is no reason that man needs to change the definition of marriage. Now, it is true that we need to be respectful of everyone's rights. And I personally believe that any two adults have the right to bind themselves legally in such a way that they have visitation rights, property rights, various other rights, but that does not require the change of the definition of marriage. Well, you know, there were other bumps in the road. Poverty. Now, I got to tell you, I hated poverty. I was sure that I was born into the wrong family. There was some mistake here. That is, until my mother, who only had a third-grade education, who got married at age 13, discovered some years later that her husband was a bigamist, worked 2-3 jobs at a time, leaving at 5 in the morning, getting back at midnight because she didn't want to be on welfare. You know, this woman made us read books. I didn't want to read them. Everybody else was outside having a good time. But she said, you got to read these books, and you got to submit to me written book reports, which she couldn't read, but we didn't know that. But, you know, but people say to me all the time, why did you do it? Your mother was out working. You didn't have to read those books. Yes, we did. Because, see, you had to do it. Yeah? Well, interestingly enough, when I started reading books, something began to happen. I started reading about people of great accomplishment. And I began to notice something. Some of them were born into terrible circumstances, but they had a dream and they were willing to work toward it. And I saw that the person who has the most to do with what happens to you in life is you. It's not somebody else. It's not the environment. And once I realized that, poverty didn't bother me anymore because I knew I could change that. I said, this is only temporary. And you see, this is what's missing in America today. That can-do attitude that allows people to move up. You know, we have, my pet peeve are those individuals who fancy themselves great champions of the people who are downtrodden in our society. And they pat them on the head. And they say, there, you poor little thing. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to make sure you have the housing and the food and the health care and all of those things. You don't need to worry about a thing because it's those bad people over there. I'm going to get everything from them and I'm going to give it to you. And all you have to do is vote for me. Not a problem. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who fall for that without looking at the big picture. Because in the big picture, you soon come to realize that you're going to run out of money. This gravy train is not going to last forever. And that a much kinder thing to do is to find ways to empower those people and ways that they can move from the lower rungs to the higher rungs of our society. You know, I want the same advantages for everyone in our society that I was fortunate enough to have. But if we continually keep people in a dependent position, then they're soon going to lose the drive that is necessary to achieve in our society. And this is, in fact, still a wonderful country. It is the pinnacle country on earth. And there have been other pinnacle countries before us. They've risen, they've fallen. They became enamored of sports, entertainment, lifestyles of the rich and famous. They lost their moral compass, and they tolerated political corruption. And what happened to them? And it is so important that we learn from what happened to them, because us remaining the pinnacle nation is not only in our interest, it is in the interest of the world. Because if you look through history, pinnacle nations have never before been as benign as we are. And if we go off the scene, we will be replaced by someone who is very unlikely to be as